on the offensive straight away. Jack Harrison here. Jack Harrison bringing the ball forward. He's played it into Pablo Hernandez, edge of the area. Hernandez goes for goal! What a start to the game! 17 seconds on the clock. It's got to be one of the quickest goals of the Sky Bet Championship season. Here's Cook. Cook goes for goal! And finds the back of the net in sensational fashion.
Jones now for Leeds. And McNabb only half stopping him. Jones getting it across. And Clark going in! And Alan Clark has put Leeds ahead!
Live down under. Mark Viduka is a sporting god in Australia and now in West Yorkshire. Here he is again. It's Viduka. It's four. It's all his own work.
Well, hello. How the devil are you all doing? It's Conor McGilligan. We're back here with another video, back here with the second video of the day. What's going on in your world, everybody? And look, I thought I'd jump on live. I was thinking to myself, should I just do a nice little 8 to 10 minute reaction? But I do enough of those. I've sort of stepped back on going live every time I hear anything. So today we're going to be speaking about Daniel Farke and the job-saving stuff, of which you can probably see just there in the headline below. Daniel Farke is facing a defining week as Leeds United manager, with senior figures at the club expecting him to be sacked if his side lose home games against Chelsea and Liverpool. This is off the back of a Guardian article, of which I've sieved through, I've had a look through, I've read through it a couple of times, and it seems pretty definitive, to be honest with you. There is insinuation, I found, if you're to read between the lines in the article as well, and some other bits, that maybe there is conflicting boardroom members with alternative thoughts on maybe who the new boss should be, if the new boss is approachable, and probably, or if Daniel Farke should keep his job. Ultimately, I presume a lot of them are thinking he should be relieved of his duties. And, oh God, where do we attack this from? So I'm going to try give reasons as to why this has not aggravated me, but just from the video we did this morning, it was very sort of, can we claw them back in? Is what sort of remit are we on right now? Do we go to a back three? Will Farke realistically go to a back three? How are we going to be looking at this? What is he going to do? And what are the Niners going to do? Now, I put a really loose indication of what I thought would happen pre the game at the weekend. I said, I bet he gets to the Brentford game. And it's so predictable from a Leeds United standpoint that it's almost like you're predicting what's happening during the season. Farke goes before Brentford. The new guy comes in after we've not been able to get the desired results. Farke at the end maybe switches and Hail Marys it, and then we bring a new guy in, and we're sort of scraping around for that new guy in this period now where we're not really sure about Daniel Farke. So we're thinking to ourselves, maybe just keep him in until we find the new guy and just we'll leak a few more bits to the media, which we love doing, which is kind of the 49ers are getting a bit of a reputation for this now. And I just think the narrative from a Leeds United perspective in and around Daniel Farke and in and around a leadership point of view, and I want you guys to get your thoughts in the comment section below, because I'm going to give my thoughts on it, is just, it's so weak. It is so weak for me. And I know a lot of people will say, look, Conor, why would he come in for the City game, the Chelsea game, the Liverpool game, the Villa game? People were even saying, because you look at that and you think to yourself, oh my God, it's death row. I've told you guys before that there's an imprint, there's a way of playing of which we saw in the second half of the weekend. With that way of playing, we beat Manchester City 2-1 with that style and ethos of playing in the right players in the right position at long last, showing that this squad isn't bad. It is a lot of the framework and the tactical ideology behind it. I thought that by relieving Farke of his duties in the international break, you had a period of time to work with a set amount of players, get videos out to players who are abroad playing for their countries on the international break, players then coming back and having words with the new boss, whoever that may be, and really been able to have a lift in a side in a game against Aston Villa, of which they weren't really up to it. And Farke was saying at the weekend, a 3-5-2 doesn't work against every team. It definitely would have worked against Aston Villa with how they shaped up and how they pressed and how they sat, as we indicated yesterday. And I thought it should have been done then. I thought as well, and a lot of people would say maybe this is harsh, Connor, on the basis that we lost at the weekend, but we had a valiant result. If anything, for me, it was almost the perfect time to relieve him of his duties. The second half saving him. I mean, let's be real. The first half was exactly how Daniel Farke wants Leeds United to be play. How Leeds want, he wants Leeds to play. 4 at the back, possession laden. The second half, it was high tempo, aggressive, I thought anyway, direct, in the face, 2 up top, 3 at the back, aggressive wing backs. And that is exactly, in my opinion, post-international break, how a new manager would have come in, hopefully, who has the principles of a back 3/5, would have been able to input fresh tactical ideas into this side. Bear in mind, we played a 3-5-2, out and out, with 3 centre-backs once this season. Not with Ethan Ampadu back there, but once this season. And that was Daniel Farke putting a fresh imprint on that second half once for 45 minutes. So if a new guy came in the international break, you're telling me that he wouldn't have been able to instill some sort of tactical framework within that period, with a potential new coach being sort of on a different level to what Daniel Farke is, you would hope. I think so. So for me, the whole aspect of he's got 2 games to save his job doesn't really make that much sense for me. I think it's sort of basic leadership. It feels almost like X Factor. It's like, you've got 2 games to save your job, a sort of sideshow. It doesn't feel like, from the 49ers standpoint, that is football strategy. It doesn't feel like there's long-term planning here. And I've just got some notes written here, guys. It just feels like almost it's indecision wrapped up in something else. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. If your ownership doesn't believe that he's the right man, why is the decision not being made? Why is the decision not being made right now? Why is the decision not being made post Man City? Norwich went to Brentford 4 or 5 years ago, beat Brentford in their own backyard, but Delia Smith and Michael Wynne-Jones of Norwich had already made the decision before, and Daniel Farke was to be sacked, and he was sacked after beating Brentford away from home. Why, when our ownership is clearly looking at it now, and there's members of that ownership, of which from the summer onwards, by the way, have not wanted Farke in the job, and still there is indecision. Still, there isn't a move being made. And it's given all of us a little bit of a boost. If Daniel Farke goes to a back 3 tomorrow night and we win the game, unbelievable. But you're looking at it right now when we're talking about a back 3, which I don't think we will go to against Chelsea or Liverpool. We might do in phases, but I don't think that's how we'll start the game. But if I don't understand why you wouldn't at least look now and see the strategy that has worked at the weekend and maybe go out and get yourself in. It's just an example of someone plays 3 at the back and collapses into a 5 and is a specialist at it. Why don't you then go and get Bo Svensson? A specialist at playing 3 at the back. You've seen that works. I mean, you should have known that anyway with the makeup of the squad when you are in recruitment and when you are the 49ers or when you are Adam Underwood. We should know that this is the perfect formation for Leeds United. So go out and get a specialist in that formation. Don't just wait and think to yourself, well, fuck, I might. We're all turning around now and we're all questioning. We have no idea whether or not he's going to go to a back 4 or a back 3. But these games coming up are so important for Leeds United, really important. But we're kind of going into it right now. And as a fan, I would be so much more enthused with someone coming in and knowing that we're going to play to our strengths, as opposed to maybe we're going to play to our strengths, but also maybe we might just throw in 6 points because the manager wants to go back to his philosophy and his ideas, of which we've seen this season when we've moved away from an aggressive, intense, direct, route one style of football and then gone to a possession-laden style of football, which Farke wants to play, ultimately. So results are going to be tough to come by in these next 2. I think we're aware of that. I just thought that, right now, if there is indecision in the boardroom right now, which there clearly is in terms of sacking him right now, Why throw away some sort of small new manager bounce you might have had? Why not give the replacement 2 home games in a row to settle in? You know, it might looked at the City game, saw we got close, come in, 2 home games on the bounce, 3-5-2, brilliant. Let's have a go. Crowd's all behind it, and we have potentially a small manager bounce. If you're planning to sack him anyway, doing it after 2 likely defeats feels like the worst possible timing, and then going away to Brentford. Give him 2 home games. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comment section below anyway. Let's have a look at what you guys are saying. I don't know how many of you are going to be in this, to be honest. To be honest with you, it could be. Yeah, a shout out to Lofts as well, who put a donation in the chat earlier on, and I forgot to. Oh, there, we'll keep that there. And I forgot to say last time, thank you for your donation. That's LUFC Lofts and Fraser as well with some really nice donations as well. 2 strikers up top, Metcha and DCL were a joy at last, definitely 100%, mate. I completely agree with you. Mike says, my thoughts are that they will stay with him whilst NF, WH, and F are in the mix. As soon as we drift, then they will act. I'm so confident of Leeds surviving. I see 3 worse teams, and I believe we can get better also. Probably wanting to secure a replacement before they pull the trigger. The thing is with that Pellegrino, I'm just looking at it, and there's obviously people on the market who are actually out of work right now. And you're looking at it, and you're thinking to yourself, why is this already not being put in place? So I'm really struggling, Pellegrino, to give them this almost like green light when it comes to it. I'm trying to provide maybe an element of balance here, but I'm trying to look at it right now and think to myself as well, with Daniel Farke, the move has to be made right now. It has to be made right now, or it had to be made in the international break. But when this is coming out today, and you're hearing this, Daniel Farke is facing a defining week as Leeds United man with senior clubs at the club expecting him to be sacked if his side lose home games against Chelsea and Liverpool. Is that both home games? How does it work? I think as well, the 49ers have evidently looked in the summer months, right? They've looked in the summer months. They've studied, we've heard from Parag before. He's spoke about sustainability in the Premier League, building Leeds United into what we hope they will be, and really investing into the stadium as well and best practices. And their grand conclusion was the best way to stay in the Premier League is with Daniel Farke, with people in the boardroom already going against it at that moment in time. So this is my worry, everybody, as well right now. If you've got people out of work right now who Leeds aren't settled on, okay, when it comes to managers who are out of work right now, we've spoken about them on the channel before. We don't need to go into who they are again. But if people are out of work right now and we're keeping Daniel Farke in for 2 games at home when we know what the system is that he's going to get the best out of this Leeds United players, and there's managers out there who are specialists in them, I don't understand that. I don't understand that. And it just stinks to me of indecision again from the 49ers, and they're not really knowing what to do. Because surely even if we get a result against, I mean, look, we'll all say it, and we've all said it on the channel as well, it does paper over the cracks a little bit, because what this season has shown you already is that we started the season with a certain way of playing. It might not have been at the 3 at the back, but it was a certain way of playing, of which at the start kind of was quite in your face, and it was intense. Bournemouth, Newcastle, Everton, we'd seen it, right at the start. And then we moved away and we got results like, Burnley, and we got results away from home, like Brighton and Forest, and we've had Villa, passive. So who's to say Farke might go to a 3, but then maybe if the results haven't gone a certain way, who's to say that he won't then revert back to a 4 again? Because he's already done it this season when we've gone from a certain style of play to then another style of play when he doesn't feel it's working, he reverts back to what he knows. So for me, there's no sustainability in that whatsoever. Leeds are then probably going to have this potential formation for a couple of home games, which I don't think we will. I think he'll revert back to his own ways, and then it's going to be on his head anyway, isn't it? Because then he deserves to be sacked. Let's be honest. If he's going to go back to his normal ways and try win that way against 2 of the best teams in Europe, he's going to struggle, A, but then B as well, it just shows that he won't adapt and won't learn. And that's the leash we gave Daniel Farke. But, if you are to look at it from an objective perspective, take my opinion out, take your opinion out. If you're to look at it from an objective perspective and look at Daniel Farke being manager of Leeds United in the Premier League, if these guys are so heavy on data, if these guys are so heavy on projection and trajectory and all this sort of stuff, they'd have looked at Daniel Farke's record and gone, he's not good enough for the Premier League, if they were ruthless. Now, I'm not saying that's what I'd have done, because I said I would have given him a little bit of leash in the Premier League, and other people have as well. But if they're so ruthless and they're great with negotiation and they're so data-led, they would have looked at that. So I kind of think to myself, Is it if they're not able to get, maybe a back three specialist? We've seen Leeds playing a back three. It's worked, right? If they then go to Brendan Rodgers, or if they go to a manager of the like, maybe Gary O'Neill, who switched between systems as well, what then are we doing? Because then we're going back to a back four. It kind of has to now be a back three specialist, doesn't it? Who there are people out there to go and recruit at least. So Nate says a manager shortlist should have been in place in the summer. All clubs have been constant name circling. For instance, Liverpool right now, of course, will have names. Slot pressure, 100%, mate. I agree. It's a consortium, so slow to make a decision like the summer. Let's have a look. Hope you are, mate. Good to see you in here, Jack. What's going on, buddy? Evening, Connor. Even everyone in Connor. A bit of a chilly one over here. Indeed, mate. Indeed. Let's have a look. It all seems a little bit panic stations from them. Most boards should have foresight to have a constantly moving shortlist for succession plans. If we have zero names around, they are seriously incompetent. Daniel says, hi, Connor. Great for your donation, mate. Thank you so much. We need trust now, not believe. Yeah, 100%. The George MR says as well, thing is, if we get rid of Farke and a new manager just gets beaten equally as much, it will be regretted. Think about Champo next year. I couldn't take a Leicester situation. I don't know what you mean there, George. Is it just are you saying that you don't want a manager to come in and potentially get beat? George, managers are going to get beat. Our new manager who comes in after Daniel Farke will be getting beaten 100%. We are going to get beaten for a lot of games in the Premier League. That's the stark reality of it, because we're not good enough. There is a way of which we can play, which hopefully might get us towards 10 wins. But the overall synopsis of this side is it's potentially 17th at a push, and that's what I've always said. I think it's good enough to stay up. I think 45 minutes against Man City vindicated that and justified that. And I'm quite happy about that, because I've been banging on about that drum now for 3 or 4 months, as of a lot of you guys. But we can't think about that. A new manager's got to come in and there has to be some sort of boost. And as I've said, we've seen that so far. And for me, it's this. I don't like this constant drip feeding of which we've had with the Daily Mail, we've had with certain journalists, and now another one's come out. We're all aware that he's on thin ice, but it's evidently just been drip fed to the Guardian here. And I think it's Matt Hughes who's written it, that he's under pressure. And, suddenly we have a deadline. If he doesn't get a result against Chelsea and Liverpool, he's gone. But it just stinks of indecision. It stinks of predictability as well. We all said on the watch long at the weekend, he'll have Brentford. And we all knew that he'd have to get through these games. James the Goose says, your point about DF pinging back to what he wants is huge. If he stays and keeps us up, would he waste the next transfer window trying to make a 4-3-3 work? I think it's a really good point, JM, and I think that's kind of where I'm at. Really, it's kind of the ideology that we've seen Farke move away from, and it wasn't stylistically, we weren't in a back three or anything like that this season, but you've seen how, if you just go and have a look at the Bournemouth game, if any of you can be bothered, go and watch the Bournemouth game, go and watch the Everton game, and look at the stylistic difference and how we approach that game, the tempo, the intensity, how we're playing in the channels, how we're playing the ball to the big man and working off him. Look at the difference between that and Burnley and Brighton and Nottingham Forest. We completely moved away from a style of play to what Daniel Farke is used to doing. Possession laden, slow build up, passing between a 5 to 7 yard sequence, not going long. This is what happened, and Leeds then suffered as a result of this high turnover rate, which was abundantly clear against Brighton and Forest, and we were getting punished for it. And it happened again in the second half. It fell anyway against Aston Villa, albeit they were a very decent side. But you are bang on. You stick with Farke during the January window, and you've got to think about attractiveness when it comes to a coach as well, bringing players in. Is Farke going to be able to attract players to come to Leeds United in that January month, players that are going to help keep us up? I don't think so. I really don't, especially when they see the position Leeds are in the fixtures we've got coming up. It feels like this team has to be coached to stay up. But you saw at the weekend that there is a mass opportunity there for Leeds United, a real opportunity there. Have the 49ers learnt nothing? They were in the building at the same time as Marsh got shut of Farke. He's obviously got too much control. Nick says, American here, if you follow the 49ers in the NFL, this is all on par. Nick, I've been told this as well. Even when I've tried to defend them. I've been told this. They only look to boost commercial revenue and not about products on the field pitch. January edition's not happening. Well, you'd kind of hope there is going to be January editions happening, really, because Farke's spoken about it anyway. A couple more coming in. But maybe Farke's just saying that in hope of us going and bringing other players in as well, because he did mention towards the back end of the window that we were going to bring in 2 attackers, and we tried, but we failed. For me, the Man City game, but I've said this before, it showed exactly why a change was needed, because it's taken this long. Okay. Now, the hope is that he does this. He goes to a back 3. But as I said, there is literal recent evidence in this season how he moves back to his style when he wants. So for me, if I'm Parag, I'm thinking, what's the long-term vision here? What's the long-term vision? Because I think we all know this is going to be like turning around the Titanic. Leeds have lost 6 games in 7. We've got big games coming up. Are there better coaches out there that will get more out of this Leeds United side? Yes. And do I believe the 49ers probably think that as well? Yeah, I think they do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have sounded it out in the summer. They wouldn't be slipping things to the Guardian and the Mail, which you feel is becoming a little bit more of a consistent thing. They wouldn't be doing this. So as a consortium, is there a split in the boardroom? Is that what's happening now? And that's why it feels like weak ownership. They're hedging the bets and they're worried to make that big call. And then you're kind of looking for results to make the decision for them rather than setting a vision and an ideology and a long-term blueprint and plan. And that's kind of the same thing that we saw in the summer. He was nearly sacked before the season even started. So if you're unsure as a consortium, as the ownership group, it's been all, bells and whistles in terms of Leeds getting a new stadium development and things happening in and around the ground and building Leeds United up to be that Premier League sustainable club. You act. Surely you act. Because for me, they clearly think, and please, guys, in the comment section below, say if you disagree, they clearly think the squad is underperforming and a change might almost give us an immediate lift for that Brentford game. That's clearly where they're earmarking. But it does feel like with the 49ers right now, guys, I feel Leeds are at a crossroads. They look uncertain, they look hesitant, and a little bit reactive. If you don't think he's the guy, there's got to be a majority share in that boardroom where you can make the final call. But I think what's irritating me a little bit, I'll be honest with you guys, it's the constant drip feeding that we're hearing. It's the constant murmurs. It's the constant journalists who, appear to know things. It's the stuff that you hear behind the scenes of which, they're looking at managers. We're hearing stuff all the time when it comes to week. They're looking at this manager. They're looking at that manager. And you just think to yourself, like, guys, just make a decision. It's procrastination sort of dressed up as decisiveness, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's just, you're hearing Matt Hughes coming out and having this big sort of, piece on when he's going to be sacked and all this sort of stuff. Once again, it's probably not going to be helpful for Farke and the group, but it is out there and there is pressure and it's always going to happen anyway. We all know that. It's football. But I just think to myself, if you are not sure on Daniel Farke, which you haven't been, why didn't you do it in the international break? Why do you keep giving chances? Why? I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. But it is what it is. It is what it is. But if he goes to a back 3 and he changes it, amazing. I've just got this thought process that they still don't think he's the man. And then what do we do as well? If it's a Chelsea win, are we then going to look at, we've all mentioned about papering over the cracks. Is he going to go back to what he's done? What his recognized style is? Because, you're asking a manager, it's a classic example, isn't it? You look at Ruben Amorim, right? And we don't like speaking about him, but he's a back 3 merchant, right? And they've all stuck by him at Man United, but there has been a clamour in certain games. Everton, all right, and I know it's in game, but they were down to Everton without a 10 men. Push Luke Shaw forward, change the system. They didn't do it. He's obsessed and wedded to a back 3. Is he really going to change his system to fit in with anyone? And that's the pressure of that club. No. You're going to get Pep to change his system when he's under a bit of pressure. Is Arne Slot going to change his system under a bit of pressure? Is Scott Parker going to change his system under a bit of pressure? Because that's what's kind of needing to happen right now. You are telling a manager who's had a philosophy and an ethos, an ideology from Dortmund 2 to Norwich, to Borussia Mönchengladbach, to Leeds United to change. And that is huge. And that's where I actually give this guy a bit of credit, because there is principles there. There is an ethos. A bit weak, I think, the ethos. I don't sometimes know what he's doing, but he sticks to his principles. However, this is not going to keep Leeds in the Premier League, and this is why I don't think this guy's good enough. And I think there's a lot of you guys who don't think he's good enough either. But you're asking a manager to change. He mentioned principles in his post-match press conference. There are certain principles that I work towards. 3-5-2 is not going to work in every game. That's literally what he said after the game. He then referenced Aston Villa. I then, came out on here and said instantaneously, I think a 3-5-2 would have worked against Aston Villa. Certain tactical elements, and he was talking about pressing, he was talking about roles. I was like, well, the pressing and the roles, they'd work against Aston Villa with how they set up and how they set up in the second half. Aston Villa go to a 4-2-4. You react for a 3-5-2, outnumber them in certain areas, push them back, make the midfield retreat. And so this is kind of where in my head I'm thinking, and this is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to give him a little bit of credit here, because this is a manager who has a set formation, he has principles, and there are top coaches in the world who have principles and set formation and set ways of doing things. You can't ask them to change. And that's what we're doing right now. And he's not a specialist at that certain principle, of which we saw on 45 minutes. And I thought that was a little bit of a, right, I'm going to see what happens here. Because we can roll over and we can get done 4 or 5, which would have happened if we were in a back 4, or I can change it up and utilize what we've maybe done in pre-season a little bit, and it worked. But he's in a bit of a tricky predicament now. Right, let's see what some of you guys are saying. I can see Talk Norwich City in here as well. Talk Norwich City, it's either Chris or Jack, says Daniel Farke just cannot seem to work in the Premier League. I thought this season would be the one where that changes. Just turned on, Connor, mate. Nothing, what's happened? Nothing's happened, mate. It's just the fact that he's been given a deadline. 2 hours ago, The Guardian posted out that he does now have a deadline. If he doesn't effectively pick up wins in either or Liverpool or Chelsea, he's gone. And we'd not heard anything of the sort prior to this. So, yeah, it looks like, if you're reading between the lines, there's a little bit of debate online when it comes to the consortium at Leeds United in terms of the 49ers enterprise. Is there a bit of, back and forth in there? Do they want him to go? Are they having a bit of conflict in there about the managers to go and get? I can't understand it. I just can't understand it. There's managers out there who utilize a back 3 who are specialists, and they don't do it, and they're waiting. And there's, for me, it's just a bit confusing. And I just think, once again, it's frustrating me again that you're getting them leaking stuff, but it's indecisiveness again. It's indecisiveness, and it feels it's pandering again as well. We'll give him as much chance as we can. We'll give him as much chance as we can, but then we do have to sack him. We do have to sack him if he gets to Chelsea and Liverpool. And come on, as long as you guys agree, we are in tune with the fan reaction, and we do take that very seriously. Hence why he wasn't sacked in the summer. But just so you know, we're giving him a little bit of rope. Chris in the building. Hey, Chris. I'm sick of being dragged out. We need to be actively talking to Motta, Terzic, Fabregas, Knutson, and Rossini in that order, and say, yes, we sack him immediately. I don't understand it. I don't think, Chris, with the names linked, the one that is linked and gives me any sort of joy in terms of, once again, systematically, and we've done a breakdown on Bo Svensson on the channel before. If you want to watch it after this, it might give you a little bit of an understanding. Feels like Bo Svensson is still there in and around the top odds. He is kind of the only one I'm looking at the minute in that bunch. To be fair, Carlos Corberán at 100% take as well. But when you're kind of seeing Gary O'Neill, you're seeing Brendan Rodgers, I'm thinking, no. I'm really thinking, I'm seeing Steven Gerrard. I'm thinking, nah, this cannot be the situation that we go into. Gerrard, and it's not building up hysteria or anything like that, guys, as well. Gerrard, I think it's just because he was shortlisted in the summer. And I was thinking, even in the summer, when I saw Gerrard's name, I was thinking, why? Why is he on any, and this is obviously from, the Daily Mail and the short list of managers that went out there. I'm thinking, how are they identifying? How are they even looking at Steven Gerrard? Take the player out of it. The manager, Max Villarontor, was saying to me not long ago, he's like, you've got to avoid him at all costs. He doesn't know what he's doing. And yeah, I just don't think right now, even if worst case scenario would go back to the Championship, someone like Steven Gerrard, not for me. I do feel for Farke as he must feel like he's been strung along now. If the board doesn't want him, then gone. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, mate. Just why are we just keeping this moving on? Why are we keeping this? But ultimately, as well, Farke always tells us to look at objective data, right? Always tells us to look at the objectivity. He's now kind of morphed into at the minute, talking to us about the data in the performance, which I think is him probably knowing. Him probably not. I mean, we saw that 45 minutes, which was excellent against Man City, and credit to him for that and making the right changes. Massive credit to him for doing that. Should have been done early on. We all know this. Like the Melier change should have been made early on. Like the Rothwell change should have been made earlier on. All of these things where maybe sometimes he's hesitant and subs should always be made with Daniel Farke early on. But he did make the change in all fairness to him. And the changes and big changes as well, taking Nonto and James off when the two of our better players in the game and going to a 3-5-2 is exactly the decision making you want to see. It's ruthless. It's critical in game. There's thought process behind it. But I think we all said, and everybody was saying on the watch along as well, it felt like it was almost like that last Hail Mary and what have I got to lose sort of thing. Because we've never seen that sort of change from Daniel Farke in terms of mass change. Starting 11, 45 minutes. When do we ever see that from Farke? So credit to him for that. But I just think to myself, he's probably going to swing back to his principles again, of which that is what we are trying to move away from, because that's what we've recruited away from, to respect the top division. And ultimately, even if we do go down to the Championship, even if we have this style of play and a methodology and an idea, you can adapt that for the Premier League, a la Thomas Frank, and you can survive. You can survive. Of course you can, but you've got to have that in your back pocket. Thomas Frank was very counter-attacky, in possession, he'd like to have a lot of the ball with Brentford, but then they got to the Premier League and they understood Brentford that they had to, relinquish control of the ball and go set piece and go route one. So he adapted. He was pragmatic. He changed. Farke, I'm not sure wants that, like Vincent Kompany didn't, like Russell Martin didn't. I don't think he wants to do that. That's the idea. That's, if it came out in the press conference and said this, that, and the other, I'd have gone, oh, okay. But it didn't feel like that. Codfather of the Soul says, if they beat Chelsea or Liverpool, then that would not be papering over the cracks. That will be beating either the world champions or Premier League champions. Quite right, Codfather of the Soul. But Jesse Marsh beat the champions of England 2-1 away. And that was, I think, the first time that season Liverpool had been beaten away. We then went on to have an absolute horror show through January after Bournemouth and Liverpool. And then he was ultimately sacked in February. Short memories. And it feels very similar right now. Jesse the Clown was doing a better job than Farke was doing now, and he got dogs abuse from the moment he came in. But even now, the Farke Defence League are sealing our fate. It's not, though, is it, Connor? I don't know what that means. Who's likely to manage Leeds if Farke does go? I think there's a lot of really good names out there, mate. I think there's a lot of really good names out there. Yeah, as I've said, we spoke about Terzic before, we spoke about Thiago Motta, we spoke about Bo Svensson. We know Fabregas has those huge ties with Como, but could this be the perfect job for him? We can't just turn around all the time and just go, well, if you don't have a name, or if you guys don't have a name with each other in the chat below, then you can't make a decision on Daniel Farke. That is just weak leadership. We shouldn't know this. We are not paid millions of pounds per year to know who Leeds United should be brought in. Should bring in. Like with recruitment, we're not paid millions of pounds per year as a team to be able to go out and find the right players. And I think we get caught up in that quite a bit. It's very much like, well, if you've not got 3 or 4 names within the chat, or you've not got 3 or 4 names that people are suggesting, then you can't get rid of Daniel Farke. Well, this is exactly, we're not doing the jobs for them. Do you know what I mean? They shouldn't be sat there playing on Football Manager and FIFA. They should have a list of managers of which they're speaking to right now, or had spoken to in the international break, where there was a period of time of which they could have spoken to these managers with nothing going on, especially if they're out of work. So let's have a quick look at the tweet anyway, which has kind of sent everybody into meltdown over the past however many hours as well, which is probably the most viral thing on the Leeds space at the minute. And we'll just whack it up now. I think Eurofoot have done a little bit of a summary of it, which helps obviously when people are just trying to get the fundamentals done here. So let's have a look. There we go. So we'll just rack it on screen. So there you go. Over my face. Breaking the future of Leeds manager Daniel Farke is at risk if he loses the next 2 home games against Chelsea and Liverpool. Senior figures at the club expect him to be sacked, reports The Guardian. Sean, hi Sean, how's it going, mate? I've said so many people he'd be sacked after Liverpool, definitely. Get big Angie for the next champion. Oh, I just wouldn't, mate. Not for me. Nah, not for me, especially at Premier League level. I think I'm looking at longevity because what I don't want to do is I still think Leeds can stay in the Premier League. I'm probably one of the idiotic believers, but I still think we can stay in the Premier League. But if we are to go down, I think there needs to be a little bit more of a long-term plan. I mentioned Thomas Frank there. Wow, if he's sacked at Spurs, that would be very nice, wouldn't it? That would be lovely. But you've kind of got an idea of a manager there who can work at the Premier League as well. With Ange, look, I know he won a European trophy and all this sort of stuff, and I know a lot of people would love it because he is coined the Australian Bielsa, but we'd probably have a very decent time in the Championship, albeit there probably wouldn't be a lot of defending there, and the line would be extremely high. But in the Premier League, I don't think once again there's that adaptation with Ange. He's very stubborn, and I think even you've seen with the top class Tottenham side in the Premier League, I think there will be massive gaps with a much lesser quality Leeds United side in the long term if we were to come back up, which would obviously be the projection. But I wouldn't be going for Ange right now. No, I think Ange needs a big preseason and certain players to play for him. I think we need to be tight, we need to be compact, and we need to play to our strengths right now. We don't need a philosophy. It's like right now, right? Bielsa coming in. A lot of people have asked me about Bielsa, and I did a video on it. And look, it was a bit of fun, of course. And there was news about Bielsa, potentially being sacked at Uruguay, and then it felt like it was kind of coming together. Farke was going to go, and the 49ers have gone for Bielsa before. But it would need a hell of a lot of Bielsa needs a full preseason training camp, probably 2 preseason training camps, if we're to be honest. There's going to be soft tissue injuries naturally with the intensity that Uruguay is still feeling now. And this will take a hell of a lot during the season. You got to think about that during the season, who can come in right now. And this is why, guys, in the summer, if they were proper decisive, proper leaders at the top of the club, they would have got rid of Daniel Farke. If they were unsure about him, they would have got rid of him, brought a manager in. Even if you want Ange or Bielsa, well, obviously Bielsa was off the cards and Ange was, but a manager of that needs a full preseason. That's what they should have done. But right now, you've got to really think about what sort of manager is going to come in mid-season when Leeds United are at the phase that they are right now, which is in the bottom third. This is why I said again about the international break, because we're 16th in the division, we're out of the relegation zone, and our next 3 out of 4 games were home games. The proposition looks way more attractive then than what it does now. So, but you've got to have big pre-season. So you've kind of got to have a manager who comes in and has got to be so, such an unbelievable coach, really. They've got to come in, they've got to work with the players that we have right now who we know are better than what people are saying, but they've got to really get a tune out of them instantaneously. And that's why it's such a risk always. And when managers come in, a lot of the time over a longer period, there's an argument that, some of the managers that do come in aren't successful. But I've told you guys before that the percentage of sacking a manager right now and bringing a new manager in right now, the percentage difference between doing it now and in February is massive. It's absolutely massive in terms of an increased level of points. Icelord says Farke did not pick the players we bought. Well, he was Icelord. We've had multiple conversations, mate, and there's multiple examples of that guy there saying he was part of recruitment. So I'm not saying that it's all on Daniel Farke, but there's been a high level of understanding during the summer break that Farke has been key with Underwood in selecting players, identifying players, and bringing them in. I think there's examples of that. Codfather of the Soul says, you are not idiotic, Connor. There's still plenty of points to play for. I don't know, mate. I'd say maybe I am idiotic, but yeah, I appreciate that, mate. The Motta Terzic deals must be very easy. Both have been out of work for about a year. 100%, mate. There are managers out there. There are 100% managers out there that can potentially do a job. Genghis Khan's mum says, sack him now and give the manager the 2 tough games to see is what he's actually got as players. Yeah, 100%. And you look at Chelsea and you look at Liverpool, and you could see it as an opportunity as a new manager. Imagine if you get that right. Seriously, imagine if you get that right. If you're a new boss, you come in I tell you what, that even if you get something against Chelsea, you rumble then into a Liverpool who are a world-class operation. Of course they are. They are the Premier League champions, but they're jittery and were massively helped the other day by Paqueta getting sent off because he was an absolute moron. 11 versus 11 on a pitch at Ellen Road. Could we get a couple of goals? Could we get a goal? It's a massive ask, but if I'm a new manager, I'm looking at that and thinking, I'll give that a go. I'll give that a go, especially if I'm out of work, Like, go on, let's have a go at that, Yeah. Chad says they're going to sack Farke. We're all getting excited. Think about how we're going to get a good manager who can save us. Then every time I'm on stream, I get called by the missus just asking if do we need bread? Sorry, guys. They're going to sack Farke. We're all getting excited thinking about they're going to get a good manager who can save us. Then they announced Gerrard, just swap positions with Coventry at that point. Yeah, 100%. I don't think that's a good way of doing it, mate. I'd only want to see Farke go if we're guaranteed to get someone better in if Thomas Frank becomes available. You bang on, Reese. You absolutely bang on, mate. Completely right. If they can't, and this is why, like, the smoking gun, is, and I've mentioned this several times, is at the 49ers right now. They are the owners of Leeds United. They make the decisions. I've got at this man before. I've got at many of the Leeds players. We've given them a lot of praise, though, as well. A hell of a lot of praise. But the ones in charge of Leeds United are the 49ers. Okay? The 49ers. There's two splits in this fan base. There's people who don't think the recruitment was good enough. I don't think when we're linked with Igor Paixão, when we're linked with Facundo Buenanote, when we're linked with Rodrigo Muniz, if I'm looking at those three in particular who Leeds were clearly after, and I'm looking at that and thinking, has the recruitment been 10 out of 10? Absolutely not. Has the recruitment been enough that can aid Leeds United and finish 17th? I think so. I think so. I think there's a strength in that squad of which fits a certain way of playing. However, if they don't get the man at the helm right, who aids that £100 million investment, what is the point? What is your strategy? What are you thinking here? So once again, giving him Chelsea and Liverpool is absolutely fine, but are you actually going to keep him in long term? I don't think you are. I don't think you are. So given a new manager the opportunity to have a go at Chelsea and Liverpool, and I want a manager to come in, by the way, who wants to have a go at them, not a manager who's thinking, oh, no, I don't want that. That's going to look bad on my CV. Go get a manager who's hungry for that, bring him in, and then we'll see what happens. John says, yeah, but answer the question, do we need bread? Honestly, mate, every time. I came on the other day with, I think it was Brownie, then Gabe, she rings me, and God love her, just waffles. She's gonna hate this as well. She's gonna see this, and I'm gonna get clipped. That mustache is going straight off my top lip. Gabe the American, he's back, everybody. Those in the chat saying Marsh was our worst ever. What does that mean for Farke, who has fewer wins, fewer draws than Marsh, than Marsh by the end of November? Even worse with better players. Farke must go. I think you bang on the money there, Gabe. Absolutely bang on the money. Me and Gabe have had conversations. Obviously, Gabe will be returning to the channel very soon, but this man tells us to talk on objectivity. That is objective. And for people who don't like Marsh and all that sort of stuff, absolutely fine. I understand that, but you are hearing very similar tones from Daniel Farke that we got from Jesse Marsh. And Jesse Marsh has a better points per game ratio at the minute, Premier League-wise, than what Daniel Farke has got. That is damning. That is absolutely damning. And ultimately, we saw a good second half, still 6 losses in 7, objectively. So, yeah. Always need bread and milk. We do, mate. Bread and milk. Yeah, I might go at Chef Weds if we end up with Gerrard. Yeah, 100%. And that's what I mean. At least we know that when this happens at some stage, hopefully when this happens at some stage, you're going to get a coach coming in who's going to be better than Daniel Farke. Hopefully. Right, you absolute legends. Didn't mean to do this. I just thought to myself, we need to have a chat about this because, I want this to be a community with the old DDD, discourse, debate, discussion, get alternative opinions in there, maybe respond to a couple as well, whilst keeping it respectful, of course. I want to encourage all opinions, but by doing that, guys, I need you to use that noggin up there and keep it respectful. Thank you so much. Like the video before you leave. There's been about 1,000 of you in the chat. Thank you so much. Check the video out from earlier on. Check out